Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about why with steroids sometimes less is more, or less is just more ideal in a lot of ways. And I know, I'll start by saying that I know a lot of guys who get into steroids, they start get their feet wet with just a basic testosterone cycle, maybe some Primobolan, and then they bump up the doses, go up to 500 test. Maybe add some Trenbolone, within the third or fourth cycle, that type of thing, and Anavar and everything else, Winstrol maybe. And before you know it, things just escalate real quick. There's this escalation ladder of dosages, and then they start having to take other type of ancillary compounds, such as to control blood pressure, to control estrogen, etc., etc. And before you know it, they're on a large amount of a whole breadth of different types of pharmacological compounds. And I'm not saying that it's not possible or you can't do it. You can't do that depending on what your goals are, obviously. But a lot of the guys that do that, it's under very much doctor supervision, who are kind of high level bodybuilders, or coach, at least a really good coach who's been doing it for 30 plus years. So for your average guy who's just getting into potentially taking steroids, I'm going to say that's not ideal. It's not an ideal route to go, because a lot of guys do that really quickly and then they end up with health issues, side effects, gynecomastia, left ventricular hypertrophy within 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? And it's just not worth it. It's not worth going down that road unless you're really supervised and there's some specific goal oriented. But I'm going to say that pretty much a lot of 95% of the goals that your average guy who wants to take steroids can do, you can do that on a relatively small dose. I'm going to say relatively small dose. And I'm not saying it's going to be as quick. You're not going to get to that finish line as quick, but sometimes it's the journey, the process, which is important anyway, right? So, first of all, 250 to 350 test, I'm going to say is the less, if we're getting max results, that's the least you need to do just for test. And test is only to get that base mostly anyway. Then it's going to be another compound you add, or compounds on top of that. But again, not to complicate it too much. That's why this kind of formula of less is more ideal. It's just about the more part of it is just the ideal part of it, which is less side effects with getting maximum results, correct? And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that a lot of professional athletes who do steroids, who are potentially in the track and field back in the day, who maybe some of them got caught, maybe some didn't, or professional athletes, they're not blasting bodybuilding levels of gear anyway. They're going to be in this kind of sports TRT thing, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here. Sports TRT, where, now I'm not saying there's going to be no risks of side effects, or no risk at all. When you do steroids, there's always going to be some element of risk, but we're going to minimize the risk and maximize the results. And 350, say 250, 350 test, then adding 200 to 300, something like Nandrolone, or maybe go 1-to-1 ratio with Masteron, you know what I mean, with your testosterone, and then adding something like HGH, which is a very safe compound to do. There's an acronym, keep it simple, stupid, KISS. And if you just keep it simple with that, even just the standard test Primobolan, 400 tests, even if you go up to 400 tests, 400 tests, 400 Primobolan, because Primobolan kind of acts as an AI, so it might minimize your the estrogen effect. And some HGH, your average guy who wants to jump on gear and actually get good results, there's no reason why you can't get good results on that, and that's even probably more than what's even needed. Okay, right now I'm doing 250 tests and 200 Nandrolone, and I'm getting decent results. Results that's within my goal range. My goal range isn't to blow up like crazy. My goal range is just to hit some PRs at my age and still make progress at my age, which I am. So as long as that's happening, I'm happy. And it might take longer than if I was to go back on some of the cycles I did before. It definitely would. Like some of the cycles I did before, I blew the fuck up like within like 2 months, right? But I don't even really care about that because there was a lot of bloating. There was a lot of other side effects, like my hematocrit was off the charts. You know, my blood was really thick, and you don't want your blood to be thick for especially for long periods of time. So I've realized that once I did 2 cycles that were much smaller, I was getting similar results. Like, sure, maybe I was pushing maybe 10, 20 pounds more on my bench press with doing like an extra 200 test or whatever. But it's like the side effects I'm getting out of that is just not worth the cost. Okay. Now I'm still, I can still put full stack on the bench press machine and still rep it out now on like just doing 250 tests and like 200 nandrolone, right? Which is like, if you add up the anabolic rating of that, that's pretty much like I'm doing 500 tests, but without the estrogenic side effects. And some of you might even be like, well, that's even too much in itself. And I'll be like, yeah, maybe you're even right there, but it's within my goal range and it's meeting my goals, and my blood work and everything's fine, so I'm okay with it. So that's why less is more. Also, less is more because you have the less amount of drugs and everything else you do, the more money you have, expendable income for doing other things, right? I know when I was doing a whole bunch of compounds, like I was doing Cialis and I was doing HGH a lot, and on top of all of the other steroids I was doing, it was just like the monthly bill on that what was adding up. So I had a lot less other expendable income on other things, like, I don't know, going on vacations or something like that. So when you do less compounds, you know what I mean, you'll have more expendable income. And I know for a lot of guys, out there, that's going to be important because not everybody is making 6 figures or whatever else. If you are, then whatever, you can buy your Serostim, like top of the line HGH. You can buy whatever you want, designer, like pharma grade, everything. But not everybody has that luxury, and especially me at the moment, I'm kind of tight. My budget's tight, so that's another reason why I kind of brought it down. And I'm glad that did happen, because now I realize that, just a basic 250 test, that's like what people say is like a starting cycle, and but then adding the nandrolone on that, it's like I don't see how I don't even see myself going higher dosages than that, other than maybe adding something like Masteron again, or maybe adding a little bit of Anavar at the end of the cycle. Like, that's pretty much it, and just like a little bit, not even that much. So that's pretty much where I'm at now as far as my rationale, and I wanted to share to you because in like a year or 2 ago, like, I was doing a lot more gear, and again, like, I was getting great results in the gym. Like, I was maxing out my bench press almost, or like my lifts every time I would go to the gym. But now I just realized, like, at the cost it would have potentially, like my thick blood, once I got my blood work done a few times, I'm like, okay, my hematocrit's like kind of off the charts. Even my estrogen wasn't great. I know I wasn't managing that well and things. So it's just like, you're able to manage your cycle a lot better. And then the other last thing I want to say is that instead of just adding more compounds, just eat more food is going to be like the major, and train harder obviously, but if granted your training's good, just literally eat more good food. That's like one of the most anabolic things you can do. Food is anabolic in itself, builds muscle and things once you eat a lot. But obviously, if you go on a little bit of a caloric surplus, granted you're eating like nice clean food and things, you're going to put on good weight, good size. Sure, you might bloat up a bit if you're kind of bulking a bit, but you're going to put on solid mass. You're going to put on solid strength, 100%. So that's kind of like the one thing that's to keep it simple. You don't have to complicate things with the pharmacological agents, and you don't need to use the pharmacological agents as kind of a crutch because your training or your food's not on point. You know what I mean? So I know for a lot of guys, getting the food on point, just eating a little bit more. Maybe it's a matter of some people, maybe some guys don't know how to cook well or whatever, but it's like, it's really simple. Keep it simple. Just like air fry some chicken, or like bake some chicken, barbecue some chicken, and then put it on some rice, and then have like frozen vegetables with it or something. You know what I mean? Or salad with it. Like, it's that simple. And eat more fruit during the day. Eat more food just in general during the day, and you'll get stronger. So that's my advice that I found anyway. You know what I mean? I don't want to be here promoting myself as some major expert, but I just know what worked for me, and I'm sharing my experience that bringing my dosages down. Obviously, I'm not getting the same results as I did when I was doing a lot more, but it's not significantly less. Okay, I'm still within my goal range. I'm still making gains. So that's the important thing that I wanted to share with you guys. All right, with this video. Thanks for watching. Peace.